You're about to listen to a podcast full of wonder, excitement, and discovery. It's time for an adventure through Odyssey. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Adventures Through Odyssey podcast, Odyssey Revisited. I'm Will here with John. It's time for our belated January news roundup, which is actually starting with news because they did a mailbag episode of the official podcast.
Gasp.
So, I'm not going to go over every little thing they said. Honestly, the only thing I wanted to briefly talk about is somebody wrote in asking, what's the plan with Eugene? And they have said the episode tackling it will be in album 75, so the next album. And they didn't give any more details other than it was really hard without Will there. So I'm glad to know my presence not being at the studio was felt. But
well, okay, that's interesting phrasing.
That's what I was wondering. So it sounds like they might be either writing Eugene off the show or a new actor is coming in. I'm assuming, again, the way they phrased it makes it sound like they did a Eugene tribute episode without Eugene in it.
Right. Okay, the reason I'm not opposed to them, phasing out the character, it would just come at, the worst possible time in this story arc.
Right, because we can't really ditch Buck at this point unless we really quickly wrap up the Jewel stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess here's my thing. Mr. Whittaker keeps getting replaced. Every other actor whose character has died has just left the show. I know they brought Bart Rathbone back for a 2-line appearance in album 50 after his voice actor died, but my guess is that was already planned and they didn't want to rewrite it to be somebody else.
Yeah, but to be fair, Eugene is the closest to Wit's caliber level.
Right.
Bernard and Tom, they just kind of phase them out after the hiatus.
Yes.
That's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be weird if they have an episode talking about why is Eugene's voice different?
Maybe they can say he got a cold or something.
Right, or
yeah,
Eugene's in an accident, and I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know.
I guess my thing would be Whit got to go to the Middle East for a year and a half while they found a replacement voice actor. They already kind of said in one episode Eugene's teaching in England. Maybe they say he chose to stay there and he'll come back at some point. So I don't know what they do about Katrina and Buck. Maybe they just occasionally mention, oh, Katrina and Buck are gone this week visiting Eugene or something.
Yeah, it's just hard now with Buck because you could just say Eugene and Katrina are off in the missionary field with Everett and his father.
Yes. Yeah, that's going to be... So, who knows? This upcoming Buck and Jules episode may be the capper on that storyline, and they can move on from there.
Yeah, that's very possible.
So I'm not going to discount that thing. That was the biggest thing. Everything else was little questions about 28 hours, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to the episode. It's very interesting. So that to me was the biggest takeaway, that they do have a plan for Eugene. The way they phrased it made it sound like he's either going to leave the show for a bit or he's permanently been written off.
It could be something weird, he just comes on with a different voice now. They have a new voice actor and they come on and it's Eugene's trying to act more fatherly and he has a gruffer voice.
That could work.
I don't necessarily want that, but it's an option. But
yeah,
that seems pretty quick. What's surprising about it is how quick it seems.
Well, he died. Yes and no. So he died, what was it, last holiday season? It was late 2021.
Yeah.
I remember that. So
I guess the episode could be in the pipe. They could have written it pretty quickly then and put it in the pipeline now.
Right. Yeah. So, and because remember when Whit died, they had to write him out of episodes They had Eugene and Bernard go on that, but they were also producing an episode, one episode a week for the year.
Yeah.
So it was so on one hand, the turnaround probably felt faster then, and yes, this feels like a fast turnaround because sometimes on these podcasts they'll mention episodes that don't come out for 2 or 3 years. So
we'll see.
Yeah, so then there were just other little nitpicky things like how did Jillian find the sweater? Something about Katrina's brothers. It was nothing bad. It was just kind of, let's answer the Eugene question and answer some other things. And then they kind of gave a non-answer to why Skye Feldstein became a bad guy. So
I think they just wanted someone who would be a twist villain, and they didn't know who else to do.
That's basically what they made it sound like. Like, well, we knew it was going to take place at the TV station, and Skye was already there. So
I think they were just like, oh, here's someone we could pull. That's at least someone we know.
Yes. All right, so moving on to the comics. So we're in the middle of a kind of a mystery comic where it looks like an old character is coming back. I mean, since I have read the most recent one where we do find out it's somebody with a pretty big name.
Intriguing.
So it's someone who was in prison, they let out, then there's another mystery person. Jason seems to have been kidnapped again, and the airwaves are also getting messed with. So
don't you think it's probably Richard Maxwell?
I can tell you based on who the other person is, it is certainly not Richard Maxwell.
Oh, okay.
So
I haven't read up to that point.
But let's talk about what I think out of all these comic arcs so far would have been the episode I would have wanted to have heard the most.
I agree.
So it's the return of Bernard. So it starts off, Bernard's chumming around with Red Hollard. We go to the hardware store with the bad joke buzzer, which I appreciate now when a thing like that comes up, they tell you what episode to go listen to.
Yeah.
He goes to Wits End. Oh, go ahead.
No, keep going.
He goes to Wits End to see everybody, so I'm guessing he just stopped working there because there wasn't enough business, so he moved it all to Connellsville and Wit just had to find someone else to clean the windows.
That's basically what it says.
Oh, okay. He finds out about Buck, and Buck, Eugene, and Katrina go to England to visit Everett and Leonard.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. I think Bernard's, maybe it's longer ago than I remembered, but I know Bernard's voice actor has passed. I
don't believe Bernard has been back since the hiatus, so.
No. His voice actor has passed, but I think it was a few years, like within the last few years. I don't think it was like during the hiatus or anything. This would have, I think, been a pretty fun episode, and even like a way to kind of write Bernard off on the show in a natural way. Like, I think instead of having him at Connellsville, you could have had him like retired, which I think is what they end up saying in the show at one point, which is why I was like, is this canon? Because I thought someone mentioned that Bernard retired.
They may have, and I'm just not remembering.
I can't remember that for sure. Because I think this would have been a fun episode to see them interact again, to bring back like Everett and all those characters, and just like just to show that they exist.
Right, it would have been a good Bernard's back for one episode and Leonard and Everett are back for one episode. And honestly, after the Buck adoption episode, it's a really good story because I think they nailed it. Buck and Bernard would inherently have more in common.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they touched upon that. It does confirm a headcanon because, Buck beats Bernard at chess on the first try. I truly think Bernard is just an amazing chess player and let Buck win to freak Eugene out.
It also seems like the first time we've seen goofy Eugene in a while.
Yes.
Like funny Eugene.
Now, that could be because Will Ryan was in his 80s when he died, so it's possible he just wasn't capable of doing the scream anymore.
No, I fully agree. But I feel like we also see that with Connie a little bit. Or like we still see it with Connie. We still see the goofiness, but it's a little less. And I feel like some of the episodes recently have been trying to bring that in, but I remember like, oh yeah, Eugene used to be like this.
Yes, he used to be, more up his own whatever, but
no, I mean more just like could get like the chess joke in the comic where Buck beats Bernard at chess and Eugene's just like, what?
That's what I mean. That Eugene was always so smart that sometimes when he'd get knocked down, he couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Process it. So if I have one complaint, it's that the comic ends very quickly.
Yeah, they kind of wrap it up as like, Merry Christmas, goodbye.
Okay, I get it was a Christmas episode, so they wanted to have it done before the holiday was over, but it just stuck out to me that we do the chess thing, then Eugene, Buck, and Katrina have that heart-to-heart. It's like, I don't know, there could have been like one panel, because you said it, Everett doesn't say anything.
The one thing that I think that's sad is I know, like, they've said that these are kind of canon, but I also get the feeling if they use these characters, it's because the Odyssey writing team has no intention of bringing back these characters.
I do think that's possible.
And so that's a little disappointing. Like, Bernard, I didn't think we were... So I appreciate Bernard being in this comic. But, like, Everett and Eugene's dad, I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Earl Bowen, voice of Blackguard, died a few days ago when we were recording this, so...
Yeah, I don't know if you cut it or our reactions or not.
Yeah, I'm going to re-listen to them and decide. But what was I going to say? But just to use the current arc as an example, if this character has been deemed never coming back, I'm going to be surprised because the person who voices them works at Focus on the Family.
Oh, interest. Oh, is it?
So that narrows it down quite a bit. And as a reminder, not to spoil it, Dale Jacobs is showing up in the February Club episode, so it's not him.
Yeah. No, I gotcha.
So... to be clear, he's one of the characters. I think there's another one, because it's a radio show, they can kind of show the character's face physically and keep it a surprise as to who's going to walk through the door.
Yeah. Then I think
I also
what we're talking about, that kind of gives it away.
Yeah, sorry. Here's the problem. It's not as much of a surprise as they wanted it to be. Let me just put it out. I called it the second or third panel in. Anyway, what I did also like about this week's comic strip is Renee is shown as being a presence around Wit's End in this one. Mm-hmm. Which I know sounds weird, but if they're really bringing her in as the new Eugene, sort of.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they may be splitting that duty between her and Maury. We're going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So...
we'll see.
But yes, Eugene and Bernard comic, great. I'm a little worried this current comic is set up for Novacom 2.0. Just because do we need to start splitting between the comics and the radio show? Anyway, we've rambled on long enough. It's time for the main event, the January episode, live from Mount Sinai. Using the Imagination Station, Zoe and Ted Humphries get to experience an adventure with Moses. Okay, so a few questions. Why is this told out of order?
That's my one big question about this episode, too. Okay, so I guess it's to have the come around where it's like, oh, like, why are they doubting? Like, I don't know. It feels like, right, it feels like it would have been better had it been sequential.
Well, let me put it, if it had started with them at the foot of Mount Sinai, and then they went back to the very beginning, then followed everything in order, then it would have worked.
I agree. I mean, is that what it's all very confusing.
Right, it jumps around a few times. Like, I think they go to the Rock, then Egypt, then the woman is sick, who we don't establish the woman very well before they time jump.
I'm not trying to be dumb.
It was right after they left Egypt.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't the parting of the Red Sea, but it was somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
I mean, I liked the episode because, again, it's a one-part Bible story that I feel like they're getting better at doing. But Ted Humphries, what did they do to him?
What do you mean?
I'm sort of joking, but one thing stuck out at me. In the other episode he's in, Ted Humphries is more not bumbling, but more like well-meaning. If you had told me at one point this episode was supposed to be Zoe and Jay, I would have believed you.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, so I'll say this. I always liked the Bible action...
the
Bible
OTC action news.
Yeah, TC Action News. I always thought that was like an interest, like a fun kind of thing. So I do like this.
Yeah.
I like how, I mean, it shows like obscure Bible stories as like, here's like examples. But right, the order of things make things a little complicated. Although I did like the end about like the message being about God's promises, and they don't actually show Moses coming back.
Yes, I agree.
Like there's still this like sense of faith in despite that.
Right, yeah. I also would like to note, this is only, I think, like only the second time a non-Wits End adult has gotten into the Imagination Station. And both times it was about Moses.
No.
Mr. Barkley in the one about the Passover, and
Bernard.
Ted Humphries in this one. I would consider Bernard a Wits End adult.
Okay. I mean, if you consider Bernard a Wits End adult, I mean, there's a few Room of Consequence stuff.
Yes.
Oh,
wait, did they put the lawyer into the Imagination Station or the Room of Consequence?
I think it was the Room of Consequence. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay, just so people know, to me, a Wits End adult is someone who is seen as a fixture around Wits End in the show.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I think part of the joke, which is why I think he's bumbling, is he's doing VR, and it's supposed to be like a hip story with the kids.
Right, and I actually appreciate this, because I have taken some heat in the past for saying, isn't the Imagination Station just fancy VR? So I appreciate Odyssey is confirming this for me.
No, because Wit steps up and is like, it's much more sophisticated than VR. It's much more different than VR.
I know, but most people would say it's VR.
It's a type kind of thing. Here's the funny thing. He said, like, I should have brought my camera. I would love him trying to bring him try to do this again, bringing a camera in.
I know, because I'd be curious to hear their description of what it looks like.
I mean,
on
I'm
camera.
not gonna lie. Thinking about this episode, I wonder if it's just kind of like a screen-based thing, but it has like some advanced sound or like wind and like heat, like certain like of those type of effects where it's
Let's face it, Wit just built those dome sets they're using for The Mandalorian.
Yeah, basically,
But maybe he roofies the kids.
Okay, stop.
What?
We know that's not true. And I'm sure drug talk is not part of the community guidelines, Will.
Oh no, here are Bob and Jesse again. This time they have a hacksaw.
Okay.
But no, it is just interesting that I feel like since Renee has joined the show, and I know she's not in this episode, we've gotten more talk about how the Imagination Station works, or that it's a lot more than just this souped up VR. I don't know if, again, is this something they're building to for later or what? But
I thought the battle sound effects were funny. Like, it was kind of like a little loop, and then he's like, what's going on here? We're at war.
I would agree with that. That was very, very good.
Like, I thought, because it's like, you get like the Moses raising his hand, you get like striking the rock, you get the manna, you get like the Levites not going along with Aaron building the idol.
Yes.
Like, you get a good chunk of like those kind of things. Kind of surprised. Now, that may have been after he came out down Sinai, but they didn't do like the snake thing.
I would agree with that. I think that was after Sinai.
Yeah, that's why. I was going to say, like, why didn't they do that? But then, like, I think it's after Sinai. Although they could have just done it, given everything's out of order.
They could have just jumped forward, yeah.
And not mentioned the snake one specifically in that. I guess, though, at the end, they're, like, doing the stones for, like, the different, like, miracles of promises.
Yeah. I agree. I also kind of love Wit being a little salty with Ted Humphries and his human interest pieces.
Yeah.
That the reason they send him on this adventure is he needs to go deeper.
I thought Ted Humphries was fine. I mean, it works because at the end he kind of comes around to be like, look, in my reporting.
Yes, I would agree.
It is funny though. They do try to make he's very much like a hello fellow kids sort of joke this episode where he's like this modern technology and it's a tape recorder.
Yeah, okay, so here's the one thing though. They never say it's a tape recorder, which I found funny because he's holding a tape recorder in the image and you can barely hear him click it on.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I don't know why Whit didn't say, is that a tape recorder?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Maybe it's a joke for the people who look too deeply at the club.
Like us.
Yes, exactly. Again, I am always surprised how surprised the adults are at the ability of the imagination station. The kids are always just kind of, yeah.
Yeah, this is what why would you think it's different? This is how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess makes sense. I do always kind of wonder, and this is a discussion for another time, how does the imagination station work during a normal operating day? Like, do you have to sign up for a time? Or...
Maybe. I mean, so the one time I remember there being a line was when there's the episode where they're like, they piled like 12 kids into the imagination station. But the one time I remember is when, remember Jason, like, made it so...
people could walk and stuff.
People could like be healed like temporarily in the imagination station. I remember there being like a huge line for that. Though since then, maybe they changed stuff.
Yes. I mean, maybe it's just set up in a way where the rooms like reset the story every 3 minutes. So I'd like to think the
door thing is technically more people could use it.
Right. I'd like to think Wits End, just the back rooms or this cacophony of imagination station rooms.
Yeah.
See, that's what you do at Focus. A maze of mirrors at the imagination station.
Maybe the imagination station is like the Flight of Passage at Disney.
Oh, that's true.
Well,
oh no,
it's hard because it's like, right, you like listen to it and it's like this perception that like these individuals are like standing right there.
Yeah.
You can like actually like tangibly touch them, but maybe that's not how it is.
Right. Now, because you know what they could do? Are you familiar with The Void?
No.
So The Void was this chain of VR-themed escape rooms where you would go into a room, put your headset on, and be in some adventure. So there was Star Wars, Jumanji, Ghostbusters. Yeah, anyway. It closed during COVID and never reopened. But again, if Folks on the Family wanted like something to bring people out, maybe they build the imagination station as like a VR adventure room.
Yeah, I mean, people would come out.
Right, and it's either like you get to go around Wits End and go on an adventure with them, or you and a couple of kids from Odyssey get to experience a Bible story.
It's true. Now,
I mean, I'd go out there for that.
Yeah, I would too. Now now they're like, we won't do it then if it means you guys are going to come out.
Maybe we can go to the press event.
Yeah, I somewhat doubt we would be invited.
We might be the only people they are willing to invite. I'm joking, but...
Who knows? But regardless, we got a little off track. But I really liked this episode. There's not a lot to say about it, but I really enjoyed it. Good imagination. Yeah, I think good, like, twist on it. Good, like, biblical story. Just, like, the order of things was a little weird.
I would agree. I kind of like where they're going with, like, Zoe and Ted Humphries as semi-foils to each other, but Ted Humphries is also Zoe's mentor.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest, especially listening to the old episodes, they kind of missed the boat doing that with Dale Jacobs and Lucy.
I agree.
Which, remember, apparently Dale Jacobs is back next month. So...
They just kind of have him show up on occasion.
I know. I mean, I guess that means he still works at the Odyssey. What if it's about the Odyssey Times going digital?
Who knows?
Or a podcast.
That would be funny.
Yeah. Please remember, Focus on the Family, if you ever want 2 podcast hosts in an episode and you need guest voices... I do it for scale.
It would be Bob and Jesse.
Yeah, I know it would be Bob and Jesse. But it was worth a try.
It was worth the try.
Maybe that's why there's so much law stuff in this episode, in the last album, because they're secretly listening to the podcast and seeing what they're getting right and what they're getting wrong.
They're gearing up to sue us.
Oh, no. Anyway, I think that wraps up this roundup. Join us next time for some more album episodes. And by that point, album 74 should be done. So we'll do our recap of the best episodes of 2022. Which, yes, I'm counting the 4 episodes that released in 2023 as part of Album 74 as 2022, because that's just easier for my mental ability.
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot, I promise.
We know.
Thanks. Well, have a great week, everyone. I'm Will.
I'm John.
We'll see you next time.